Hello and welcome to a one-take toilet top audiobook production. This series book is The Ultimate Adventure by L. Ron Hubbard, as read by the bathroom reader. I am covering for the Plurality Report, who is currently saying, "We've been reading some pretty good science fiction recently. Let's get back to some shit." And now, The Ultimate Adventure. When Stevie Jebson's aunt died, Stevie Jebson was immediately without means of support, thanks to several income taxes which managed to take, at a gulp, the whole of the nest egg salvaged from palmier days. After 4 months of grief and desolation, Stevie realized that fate was about to hand him starvation as well. The kitchen garden had disgorged its last turnip, and the ground itself was this very day to be given over to alien feet. It was a dreary afternoon for Stevie Jebson. He shrugged forlornly into his overcoat, and into his pockets tucked a few trinkets which had more sentimental than actual value. A volume of the Arabian Nights, later to be greatly regretted. A fountain pen, destined to purchase his life. A pocket knife. His late father's watch, which was soon to tell him more than time. And a presently priceless box of matches. Forth he went into the chill autumn blast, brother to the dead leaves which the wind harassed mercilessly, and, because he had no destination, merely kept walking. At midnight he was still walking, and, because he was so unused to such diversion, he became so weary that at length a park bench looked as inviting as a satin couch. Stevie sat down, wrapping the coat about him. There was so very much of the coat and so little Stevie that it was no time until he was only a light violet shade from the cold. Morosely, he contemplated the aura the fog made about a park light, and in it, as though it were a crystal, he saw Stevie Jebson go down into a pauper's grave at a very early moment. In Shakespeare he had read about beggars, but he knew he could never stoop to begging. If he had read the papers he might have known something about relief, but papers and Stevie had never connected beyond the religious tracts his aunt had collected, and with which Stevie had sometimes started fires. Briefly he contemplated an accident which might happen to him wherein he would rescue the daughter of a millionaire from a burning building. But there were factors against this. Stevie always coughed terribly when subjected to smoke, and, besides, he would not be likely to discover a building on fire and then locate the right girl to rescue before the sun went down again. So unversed was he in starvation that he thought he could not last through another day. Lean already, his usually well-fitting pants were now but indifferently held up, even though the buckle was down to the last notch. He felt very sad and very sorry for himself, and very much aware of the reality of this world, which demands that a man eat to live. That, to Stevie, was a foolish and thoughtless law. Much more to his liking was a diet of romantic ballads and plays on which he had subsisted since that long-ago day when his aunt had decided that the cold he had gotten at school was indicative of his frailty and consequent inability to ever again attend such a place. To the abuse of his eyes and the fattening of his brain, he had dieted as he pleased from a mid-Victorian library the ensuing 20 years. He thought, as he had thought for days, of all the beautiful meals which had been set before him unappreciated. For half an hour he Iron Maidened himself with visions of roasted turkey, the only food which ever really registered upon his inattentive palate. But finally the strain was too great, and the shock of his aloneness swept in upon him to engulf what little courage he had left. He curled his shivering slightness upon the knife-edged slats of the dewy bench, and fell into harassed slumber. Sir Lancelot smashed his feet with the flat of a mace, and Merlin immediately thrust the stumps into boiling oil, and Stevie woke up in the shadow of a tower of blue, which, upon again applying nightstick to soles, growled, "Let's go, Jack. The world's waking up." Stevie oriented himself with great difficulty as he watched the patrolman cross the gravel walk to similarly treat another wayfarer who had been caught by dark and empty pockets. Stevie felt the weight of the world, ton by ton, settle all its 6,592,000,000,000 tons upon his soul. Sleep dulled the aching emptiness of him, but even so he contemplated a cooing, strutting pigeon with speculation as to its edibility in the raw state. This thought startled him into wider awakeness. How short he was on fortitude, he told himself. He must steel his soul to meet his imminent death without a murmur. He sighed, filled with pity for his departed dreams. "Got a match, pal?" It was the bum from across the way, a pasty individual who seemed to leak lard at the pores. He had culled a tattered snipe from his ash-can salvage suit. Stevie knew he didn't have a match, but he looked anyway, anxious to stave off that feeling of aloneness, if only for the benefit of a bum. It came to him, too, that he must now consider himself such. "Aye, go on," muttered the tramp, discovering the broken cardboard tab in his hat. "A bit chilly this morning," commented Stevie. "Chilly," snorted the bum. "You say it's chilly and you got a whole bedroll in that overcoat. Say," he added with growing curiosity, "you don't look to me like you ought to be sleeping on benches. Wifey got sore at you?" No, said Stevie, getting it. "I am merely, finding myself in most unfortunate circumstances. I have neither funds nor work, and I have not eaten for some time." Don't try to string me," said the bum. "I'm regular, see? Fishy lines don't take. You ain't tough enough for a stoolie, and say, you ain't trying to make a contact to sell the white stuff, are you? Me, I don't indulge to save it." "You started this," said Stevie, with sudden wonder at his own courage to speak so sharply. "I am not trying to sell whatever it is. I beg your pardon." Whereupon he got up and started to walk away. "Hey," said the bum, "no use getting sore. I can tip you free breakfast if you can eat it." "I am not looking for charity," said Stevie stiffly. "If I could find honest employment—" "You mean work?" "Quite," said Stevie, not wanting to move off after all. The bum went rummaging under a shrub behind him and finally brought forth a section of the newspaper he had used to keep his chest warm. The section he had discarded with deep contempt, but he gave it to Stevie. "Want ads," said the bum. "If you're serious, you'll probably find something in there." Stevie sat down, and the bum smoked at the snipe, and the pigeon cooed and strutted, disturbing Stevie's concentration. He read the columns with some surprise. People, it seemed, did employ people in various capacities, and advertised accordingly. But the first wave of enthusiasm which hit him evaporated. He could not answer for any of the qualifications demanded, as he had none of the repeated experience necessary. Further, most of the ads were for salesmen, and he fell into a chilly sweat at the thought of trying to approach a man to sell him something. At last, disconsolately, laid the paper aside. I thought it was a stall, said the bum. They were silent. Stevie could not keep his eyes away from the pigeon. Of course, if the fowl really wanted to be obliging, it would lay an egg on the gravel, but then, maybe it wasn't that kind of a pigeon. The technique of killing pigeons was an intricate thing, Stevie realized. Did you wring their necks or hit their heads on the edge of a bench? No, he couldn't do it. Repulsive as was the thought, he would have to accept this breakfast. You spoke, that is, mentioned a free meal? Said Stevie. Sure, you can get there in about 5 minutes. Where? Said Stevie, getting up, and then he bethought himself. But aren't you going too? Me? Nope. Cockroaches and breakfast cereal look so awful floating around in blue milk. Stevie gave a shudder. He sat down again, contemplating the pigeon. He wondered if it would squawk loud enough to bring a cock. Carefully he slid off the end of the bench, the pigeon all unawares, and made his way towards his quarry. The bum did not notice. Stevie stopped. 2 blue legs were rising like columns before his face. He started up, his one thought concentrated on a sprint, but with a gasp of relief, he saw that this was no cock. He tried to look dignified. The man was tall and elderly, wisps of white hair escaping the rim of his black derby. He appeared to be of a very high social order from his bearing. He had pince-nez and a detached air. He took off the pince-nez and changed his manner. He replaced the pince-nez and resumed an interested study of Stevie. Stevie looked up and down himself to see what the fellow was staring at, but could find nothing wrong. "Are you hungry?" said the stranger. Stevie tried to keep the shout out of his voice, but even then he almost blew the stranger's hat off. "Yes!" "If you would care to be employed for a short time, profitably too, I think we can remedy that," said the stranger. The bum tugged Stevie's coat and growled warningly. "Watch it, pal." Stevie took no notice. "I'm very anxious to have an honest position," he stated. "Good, but before I allow you to accept," said the elderly man, "I must warn you that this is not a very usual sort of job." "Anything," begged Stevie, "anything that's not really dishonest." The bum tugged harder. "Cheese it, buddy. I can tell you something about this gent. He comes through the park every morning looking for a bum, and he and a couple's been took up. He's trying to get himself a human guinea pig." Stevie's mind was too concentrated upon the food to allow the advice to swerve him. "It is not as bad as that," said the gentleman. "True, I wish to test a certain matter, and through my results so far have been unsatisfactory, I may be able to promise you something very interesting, though not particularly dangerous." "Particularly?" said Stevie, suddenly caught by the word. "Well, no, not really," said the gentleman. "I am a research scientist in a field not generally touched upon, and of course, I must have subjects. You do this of your own will, of course. I merely offer plenty of food and ample funds." Food got Stevie. He nodded vigorously. The elderly gentleman led him up the walk. The bum shook his head and then shrugged expressively. It was none of his business what happened to that thin little kid.